All right, well, welcome back to Exhaust Sports Auto, and we got a little 2010 Audi A5 here because a little gentleman actually wanted me to review this vehicle, and I thought, okay, well, why not? Since he asked for it, he's going to get it. And who do we have to thank for this little opportunity? It is none other than Cary Imports in Cary, North Carolina. So, as always, their information will be down in the description box below, and you may certainly hit them up if you're interested in purchasing either this car or any other car on their lot, like that little LS460 Lexus back there. So if you want that, we'll go ahead. Anyway, let's get into this video, because why am I doing this Audi A5 video? Aside from that gentleman asking me, this car is quite intriguing. This is like, what, $9 grand and some change here. This is a nice looking car, man. This is a 2010 vehicle. It's an A5. It's a coupe. It still looks amazing till this day. It's actually a nice sized vehicle. I really appreciate it. So I guess let's start out this little review here with the exterior. So it's got super clean lines. I mean, here's the thing that I really like about Audis. They age really well, both the exterior and the interior. And I'll get to the interior in the interior segment, of course. But these cars, like, the design is not overstated ever, so you can have like a 10-year-old Audi pull up in it and not look embarrassing. So I really love that, and I really appreciate that. So that's really good. But you let me know in the comment section what you think about the way that this vehicle looks, because that is subjective at the end of the day, but the drive is not. So let's talk about that, because that is far more important. You know, a lot of people, they like these European cars, specifically Audis, because they are smooth as hell, dude. I will give it that. These don't drive like the typical Japanese, Korean cars, American cars. They have a legitimate smoothness to it that people lust for, man. That's why, you know, despite what you say on the internet, despite what anybody says, people still lust for these things. I was looking up some A5 videos. I didn't really watch any, but they got hella views. And you know why they have hella views? Because people want these things in the used car market, because they see it as a great looking car. At the time, it was actually like one of the most gorgeous coupes when it came out. People loved it for that. They sold a lot of these things too because of that. But this is 10 years later, obviously, with 152,000 miles on it, so we got to talk about that. But this thing, it's obviously the dealership fixes a lot of stuff that this needs to have done, but I mean, everything works. All the little electronics work on this car. It's great. It's super satisfying. It's got a nice little 6-speed automatic, of course. Made it to this particular model is the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder model. And this is probably going to be the most common version. This is the Prestige model, so it's actually like a fully loaded model. I don't know about the audio system, but everything else, it's a Prestige. It's the highest trim level that you can get. But this motor, right, it produces about 211 horsepower and about 258 pounds-feet of torque. Now, there was a 3.2-liter V6. Honestly, that is the more reliable engine power plant, but the reason why I come to this dealership is because they'll still sell you a warranty on these older vehicles. So this car, with the warranty, fantastic little beater car, if you will, especially for the winter. This is the Quattro all-wheel drive. You know, it's on some front-wheel drive thing, so it takes a moment for it to kick down in gear, but once it does, this is not the fastest thing in the world, but it has a pretty good sensation of speed. The main thing is that, you know, it does take a moment for it to kick down in gear, despite it being a 6-speed automatic. Usually I like 6-speed automatics. It's pretty good. There's not a lot of gears for it to go down. Funny enough, if you got the convertible version, which was also very popular, you have the option of getting a CVT. Please don't do that. If you have an option of getting a regular automatic, please do that. But you could also get these things with a manual as well. So that's what I'm saying. If you get this thing at the right price, manual, this can be a lot of fun. You can't get the V6 with the manual, but the V6 actually doesn't give you more power. Well, it does. It gives you more like horsepower, but it's actually got less torque than this 4-cylinder turbo does. But it does mask the speed from you, dude. You can be doing 10, 15 miles per hour over the speed limit and not even notice. So it's a legitimate luxury car, and that's what I'm saying. It is an Audi at the end of the day. Despite the age, despite the miles, it has those characteristics and the charm that people love. It's hyper smooth, very prestigious. You feel like a boss rolling around in this thing, and that's a lot that you get for your money there for 9G. So I respect it for that, but it's not perfect, and I'll talk about more in the interior segment. But there's a bunch of little rattles and stuff going on here with this vehicle. Obviously, I've driven like A7s before, and I love those cars. Like this particular car, I'm checking this A5 out. This is one of their cheaper offerings, one of their cheaper models basically. So it's not built to the exact same standards as some like the A7s and the A8s, obviously. But for the most part though, Audis, they are really solid vehicles that you can actually buy it used with a lot of mileage on it, and like it won't be a total tin can. Like it still feels solid, but unfortunately there are still some rattles going on with this vehicle, mostly in the back, but it is what it is. I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, I was mentioning that V6 there, so the 3.2 liter, that is the more reliable choice, but it's also going to sound better. But again, you cannot get the manual if you get that option. The Quattro means that you have plenty of grip all the time. Even though it's not the fastest thing in the world, I like how the power builds up progressively. It builds up almost like a naturally aspirated vehicle. So I do like that. I'm sure there's a little sport mode or whatever in here as well. I mean, there's so many freaking buttons and dials you got to dig through. It's almost not even worth it. This thing is extremely comfortable. You know, it's got like a multi-link kind of wishbone setup in the front. So it's still got a legitimate suspension setup like Audi is typically known for, which is good, even for this like kind of compact luxury type size. So that's good. And you have like this trapezoidal link system in the rear. Suspension system in the rear, so there is that. The suspension geometry in this thing is fantastic, and it is helping this vehicle ride extremely well. This particular car has the 19-inch wheels on it. This is the S line, so you got the 19-inch wheels. That looks amazing. It's riding on some of these Falcon tires, which help it be a little bit more quieter, so that's good. And these tires are 255 wide tires in all four corners, so very wide tire setup. And that with the Quattro all-wheel drive, that's going to give you all the grip that you're going to ever need, so that's good. Perfect launches every single time, and it can get very aggressive once you get deep enough into that throttle pedal, so I do like that. You know, that's what I'm saying. The sensation of speed is good in this thing. It will kind of throw you back into your seat, which is the best part. And again, I'm going to take this out in some more garbage bumps here in a little bit. You can feel like there is a slight bit of wind noise coming through, but like it never comes through though. Like you get like this small whistling effect. This is a very windy day, so I totally forgive it. This is a very quiet car, so that's not an issue. It does not have double pane glass if I haven't mentioned that already, but this is great, man. Just that annoying ass rattle in the rear, that's about it. But for 9Gs, dude, I will shut my trap about that, that's for sure. I will say though, this was like a smoker's car, so that also, you know, it's one of those cars, like it's cheap for a reason. Like the power is great, but it's just like when you first put your foot down into this thing, you never get the power that you need. And being in normal mode, you're going to get pretty good fuel economy, of course, you know, like 30 mpg on the highway, all that good stuff, like 20s in the city, but it does require premium fuel, of course. Hopefully the V6 has a little bit more immediacy in the throttle input. You let me know in the comment section below if you're an owner of that vehicle or if you have driven an A5 with the V6 before. Most importantly though, it's going to sound a lot better, but these engines are so freaking refined, especially from Audi, that it doesn't really matter, I guess. And you know, I'm going over some of these bumps. It could be a bit bouncy, but like not really though. I'm going to test out some of this handling here. There's not too much roll with the chassis, obviously. The all-wheel drive is so freaking good. Yeah, that's great, dude. Yeah, all-wheel drive, that's giving it a fantastic cornering ability as well. Now going over the railroad bumps, and there's a pretty bad bump coming up here in a little bit. Soaked it up extremely well. So yeah, this is a very non-fatiguing car to drive. You know, you can drive this for hella miles and be extremely comfortable in this car. And I love the steering. I'll kind of end off with the drive on that. So the steering just feels great in these Audis. It's like perfectly weighted. And that smoothness is what just makes it so freaking satisfying to kind of just pilot it around town. So there's like a personality to this that makes it a little bit more livable and actually more enjoyable to drive out on the street than something like a BMW. And here's the other thing, you know, kind of compared to some other vehicles here, BMW, Mercedes, all these types of vehicles, they age so badly, especially with the 150k miles on it. That's why I'm checking out this Audi, because Audis typically age way better, and it has, although it's not perfect. And I'm going to get into that in the interior segment, so I'll see you there. All right, so now that we are stopped, let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior now. So as a whole, it is extremely solid in here, so that's very good. Like there's, you know, when you kind of like touch up against like the thing as a whole, it's really good. I will say the biggest drawbacks are obviously the rattles, particularly from the rear, but also there are some sticky buttons here for the radio, the media, all these buttons kind of on the right side here of the infotainment controller is like all kind of sticky. The ones on the left are kind of fine. So that's kind of the main things I kind of noticed with this interior space. Obviously, everything else is actually functioning perfectly here. You got automatic headlights, you got no check engine lights, anything stupid like that. Even the little door mechanism thing obviously still works, or else you would just bust a whole glass off this car if this thing didn't work. You know, it's a coupe, so it's got to kind of go down and up a little bit when you open and close the door, so it does that. You got one touch automatic up and down windows for both these windows here, so that's pretty good. These doors don't weigh like 30 tons, which is convenient, so that's good to live with every single day. This car is a little bit difficult to see out of, particularly at the rear. Like the rear glass is pretty much useless, but at least these side mirrors are a pretty good size, so I appreciate that. Steering wheel is great. It's one of my most favorite things to interact with on this interior, and with most Audis actually. This is aged extremely well. It's a great thing to kind of like, you know, touch and hold on an everyday basis, so I do like that. Got nice little plastic paddles here, which are, you know, whatever, but it does react pretty decently, so I don't mind that. The audio system I don't think is updated or anything, but it does actually sound pretty decent, so I don't mind that. Not the best thing in the world, but it's okay, it gets the job done. Unlike a BMW, it has like a normal turn signal, which works perfectly, and I love that. These seats, these S-line embossed seats actually are extremely comfortable, and they kind of have like this Alcantara suede insert in the middle here, which is really nice, and I appreciate that as well. They definitely keep you in place, but it's also like you can do a lot of miles in this thing, so that's a great thing about this interior seat right here. The key system is interesting. You put the whole fob in there, you can start it that way, or you can press a start-stop button here. I mean, it's very dumb. I mean, if you have to put the key inside the slot anyway, you might as well just, you know, press on that again and just turn on that way. So this is kind of redundant, but whatever. You got an electronic parking brake. All that stuff works extremely well. I like the gear lever knob. It's got a nice finish to it. I like that leather perforation there, similar to the steering wheel, but it's also just typical up down, very simple. This is the latest MMI system for 2010. It's still hella difficult to use. I don't really like it, but whatever. You have it, and you can kind of mess with it if you want. It's a total waste in my opinion, but whatever. That's not really why you buy this car. Honestly, if you're interested in this car, you should just buy it as a beater. Honestly, that's the best thing you should do. If you get it in a manual, even better, but if you get this automatic, I mean, it's fine for the price. I mean, I get it's also a smoker's vehicle. It's part of the reason why it's so cheap. So the more expensive Audis are actually made of mostly aluminum, whereas this actually has a lot more steel construction, but a lot of the steel was coated to prevent corrosion, so that's good. But just want to let you know, this is one of their cheaper Audi products, so there's that. I do like the gauge cluster. Very simple, very easy to understand and read that, and the little helper screen is nice as well, but I will say the technology is a little bit cumbersome to use here. Oh, and another place where the interior is not so great is this very crunchy kind of center armrest. That's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. It's kind of broken almost, honestly. So there is that. That's kind of a point of concern for me. And cup holders are a good size, but otherwise the interior space was pretty good. The glove box is extremely accommodating, so that's also good. You have a nice large sunroof here as well. It's not a panoramic, but it's a very large one, so that's good if you are interested in that. The most important things with me with this car is usable. You know, all-wheel drive. You can drive it in the winter. The back seats are usable. I can fit behind myself. There's actually a decent amount of room back there. It's like sitting behind like an older model Civic, basically. So that's really good. You can actually fit adults back there for at least 30 minutes, something like that. And headroom isn't actually half bad either. So for such a petite size car, that's very good. The trunk is a decent size, not massive, but the most powerful thing is you can actually fold down the rear seats in this thing. So that's great. I love that. And there is even a spare tire back there as well. So those are the pragmatic things that I like to see with this vehicle, and why it's kind of worth looking into. I mean, at prices like these types of cars are kind of worth looking into, especially at this dealership, because you can get it with a warranty. But even if you don't, you know, it's like throwaway money for you, basically. I mean, it's just like whatever comes with it, and you just deal with it as is. If you have an independent shop to work on it, even better. But this thing, if it had the manual, I mean, I do like the 6-speed automatic. That's fine, but I'm just saying, if you had the manual, you know, with the all-wheel drive, this thing could be a lot of fun to just hoon around in the winter time. So even this, honestly, if you're like a college student or something like that, you should want something to tool around in. I mean, this is pretty decent, actually. So something to keep in mind. But again, at this dealership, definitely buy it with a warranty. That's definitely my biggest thing that I can recommend to you. But also let me know in the comment section, how has this vehicle held up? Like I mentioned, the V6 is the more reliable car, but if you own the 4-cylinder turbo, let me know how it's held up. I'm sure there's some people who are like, oh, I have 500,000 miles on mine, no issues. All I did was change the oil. God bless you, that's great. But to the more pragmatic people out there, please do get it with a warranty, like I already mentioned 55 times already. So thank you again, and check out Cary Imports, and the next video will be posted on the end screen here. So thanks again, see you there. Bye.